Hi, I'm Kelly from Kelly Jones Jewellery. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make this cute little moon pendant. You can use any size crescent moon shape stone that you like. I've put a list in the description below, as always, of everything that I use to make this, including all the tools, and there are links to my Facebook, Instagram and my Etsy shop where I sell written tutorials if anyone's interested in having a look at those. To make this pendant you'll need 0.8mm wire, which is 20 gauge, and I've cut 4 lengths at 11 inches, that's 28 centimetres. You'll need 0.3mm weaving wire, 28 gauge. You need about 200 centimetres. Throw mine onto a bobbin. This is a Bobeeze bobbin by Beadsmith. If you don't have one, don't worry, you can just cut lengths as you go. This just makes it easier when you're working with longer lengths of weaving wire. You're using a little moon today. These little moons are a little bit different to the other moons that I use. So if you've got one of these, any size should do really, as long as it's not too tiny. Mine's 25mm by, my widest part is 15mm. So if that was a circle, it would be 25mm. So you can use any size you like. Just remember to adjust your wire lengths and your weave repeats according. And for this one, we're going to be using a selection of small beads. If you don't have any little beads, then it doesn't matter, you can just leave this part out. I'm using a 4mm, 2 3mm and 2 2mm. When you're buying your beads, remember to look at the hole size, because you need to be able to fit that bead onto the 0.8mm wire. So you need your hole to be about 1mm. You need to check that on all of your beads, especially when you're buying them online and you can't really see what you're buying, because you'll get your beads and you won't be able to fit them on your wires. Tools, I've got my pliers, round nose pliers, wire cutters. I always have nylon pliers handy for like flattening the weaves and compressing the weaves, but if you don't have these, don't worry, because it's not important, you can just use your fingers. All my tools are Tronex, and I've put a list in the description below of everything I use if you just want to have a look in more detail at the tools that I'm using. So cut all your wire lengths as I have. Position your thumb in the centre of the wires. We're going to start weaving just to the left of your thumb there. Oh, and I forgot to mention I'm using square wire. You can use round wire if you like, it's entirely up to you. I'm just using square wire today because I like to twist the wire and put those lovely little twists in it. And I thought that worked with this design, but if you don't have square, you can just put coils onto the wire instead. Okay, we're going to start with 3 wraps around the bottom wire. And then we'll have, I think I need to just adjust my wires a little bit so they're a bit easier for weaving. So then we want 2 wraps. If we have 2, we'll just have one wrap around the bottom 2, come up between the bottom 2, we'll have a wrap around the middle 2, come up between the middle 2, over the top, so we've gone around the top 2, come up between the bottom 2 wires, we'll go around the middle 2, and then come under the bottom wire and over the second, so I've gone around the bottom 2. And your wires do tend to slide along, so you're going to have to keep an eye on that. Your wires, your weave. So when we've done that, we'll just do a couple of wraps around the bottom wire, and that'll be our repeat. So we go around the bottom 2, around the middle 2, around the top 2, around the middle 2, and around the bottom 2. And then 2 wraps around that bottom wire. So I've done 8 repeats of that weave. If your stone is much smaller than mine, then you'll need to do less repeats. And obviously if your stone's bigger, you're going to have to do more. But the repeats are going to sit across the bottom of the stone there, so if you can imagine the amount of repeats to the size of your stone that you're using. And don't forget to flatten off any sharp edges that might be sticking out, sharp ends. So this is going to be my front and this is going to be my back. And now we're going to make sure that your weave is still central on those wires. And we're going to need to put a nice gentle bend in that weave. Bend it with your fingers to get it started, and then we'll position it around the stone. So move to a flat surface for this bit, it makes it a bit easier to handle. So position that weave on the bottom of your stone there, and then carefully holding it in place really tight. You're going to wrap that wire around your stone. Your stone's going to keep doing all this business, and you've got to try and keep it as straight as you can. And when your wires get to the top, you need to cross them over each other. And it is fiddly, and I'm working with silver, so it's very springy. But that's what I'm looking for. Try and hold your stone straight. It's going to keep wiggling. Try and hold your stone straight. And then bring your wires together above at the top there and cross them over. So when it's all level and straight, I hope you can see what I'm doing. I've got my weave sat along the bottom of the stone, put the stone pushed down as far as I can. I'm holding the sides in place just for now. And where the wires come together at the top, I'm going to bend them out just by wiggling the wires. And these wires are quite tough. So all the wires come out together at the top there. So that's the kind of shape you're looking for. And try not to let your wires cross over each other on the sides like I have. It's a bit fiddly to hold it all, but it'll all come together in a minute. We tie it all together. So have a look at your shape and make sure you haven't got any sharp angles in it, and it's all nice and round on both sides. You can even, where your wires bend up, use your pliers to straighten that to make sure that they're all bending at the same, in the same place. We're going to put a little weave here at the top just to hold them all together, because mine do keep crossing over, and it'll give it a bit more strength as well. Just currently finished a written tutorial for this moon. It's a 35-page tutorial with over 150 pictures to follow along in your own time. If you fancy having a look at that, if you fancy the challenge, pop on over to my shop and have a little look. I am running a sale at the minute. I've put 20% off this particular one. So working on this side here, I'm making sure that the points of the weave are still facing up, so that all the points are all facing in the right direction. I've separated my wires again so that they're all properly sat next to each other, and I've separated them, at the ends to make it a bit easier for weaving. So take your weaving wire, and we'll start with 3 wraps around that bottom wire. I'm going to do it up here just because it's a bit easier. So if you're working with copper, it'll be a lot easier than this, hopefully. It is a bit fiddly. So we've got 3 wraps around that bottom wire. So we want to go once around the bottom 2 and come up between those bottom 2. So it's exactly the same weave as we did just at the bottom. Only now we're going sort of around this crazy bend here. So I'll probably do 3 repeats of that weave there. I want to need the 2 wraps around that bottom wire. So I'll do 3 repeats of that weave. So I've done those 3 repeats. I'm going to cut the wire at the beginning and at the end. Flatten down any sharp bits, sharp ends. And we're going to do that same weave on the other side, so making sure that all these points of the weaves are coming forward. I mean, you probably won't see it. I like to keep it all tidy and all facing the right way. So on this side we're going to be working upside down. So we're going to be working here. We're going to do the 3 repeats. Just need to pull these wires apart so I can see what I've got. It makes it a bit easier for weaving as well. So now we're going to do the weave upside down on this side. So now we're going to start with 3 wraps around the top wire. Oh, and on this weave as well, you have to finish with 3 wraps around the first wire and not 2. But you can finish with 2 if you want to. So we've got 3 wraps around the top wire, and we're going to just do that weave upside down. So we come up between the middle 2 wires. And we'll go around the top 2 wires. This is where my brain fails me, because I'll keep calling these the bottom wires because I'm seeing it as an upside down weave. So we're going around the top 2, and then we go up between the bottom 2 wires. We go around the middle 2, under the bottom wire, over the second, so we're going around the bottom 2, up between the bottom 2 wires. Then we go around the middle 2, up between those middle 2, and then over the top, so you're going around the top 2 wires. 2 wraps around the top wire. This is awkward doing this behind here. Pull it all together. So that's 1 repeat, so we need another 2 of those, and then finish with 3 wraps around that top wire. So I've done 3 repeats of that. I'm going to cut the wire from the beginning only this time. I'm going to keep the wire attached for the top part, because we're going to carry on weaving up now into our bail. So we've got 3 weaves. Little weave repeats at the top there, keeping everything nice and tidy. We've got our main weave at the bottom, and they're all facing forward, but if yours aren't, it doesn't really matter, because I don't really think you'll see it. I'm just fussy like that. To reposition your stone and make sure it all fits, because we've been doing our weaves, we may have misshaped the wires a little there. So move to a flat surface and make sure the wires still squeeze around your stone. So now take your weaving wire and holding the top together the best you can, we're going to go around the whole thing. And you don't want your wires to cross over each other. So if you can still keep your wires separated on the sides, that would be good, because then you can see what's front and back in case they do cross over. You want about 5 or 6 wraps around the whole thing, hold it all nice together in place. Try and make sure your sides are level when you're attaching the top. And then finish with 3 wraps around any of the back wires to secure those wraps in place. So now pop your stone in and make sure that it's central. Look at the points at the top. Try and get it as central as you can because it still does shift about a bit. And we'll look at securing that in place now. So focus on those top points and make sure that you've got it nice and central there. Turn to the back. Just separating the wires on the side so I can get the pliers around this back wire. So then take your pliers and grab your wire at the end of your weave. So you need to make sure that your weave is still pretty central as well. Have a look at the points at the top and have a look at the weave at the bottom. And then grab that wire just next to the weave. And holding the top down, we're going to bend the bottom in. Holding the top down holds the top in place at the top. And then bend the wire in at the bottom. And we do that on both sides. So holding the wire at the top, grab the wire at the bottom. That's not good. And then twist that wire in. I'm just pushing the wire against the stone now. So you've got this shape on the back. You can see all my hand cream on my stone. I'll have to clean that off in a bit. So then turn to the front and we're going to do the same again. You want to separate your front wire a little bit so we can get the pliers in. And then grab your wire next to your weave and holding the top in place, we're just going to turn the bottom. So we're turning the wire in to hold the stone, and we do that on the other side. Turn that in. So we've got that same shape on both sides. So that's secured the stone at the bottom, and as we do this bail now and start to finish off the wires at the top, that will hold the top of the stone in place. So don't worry about the top for now because we're going to secure that as well. So now we're going to take these front 2 wires on this side and we're just going to curve them down out the way. And take the front 2 wires on this side and curve those down out of the way. So now we're left with 4. And bring your back wires up the middle and the other 2 wires to sit next to it. We're going to weave across all 4. So you want to get them nice and straight and sat next to each other as evenly as you can. So take your weaving wire that's still attached. And we'll go 2 wraps around the bottom wire, come up between those 2, 2 wraps around the middle wires, come up between those 2, 2 wraps around the top wires, and then come up between the bottom 2, 2 wraps around the middle wires. So similar to what we was doing before, but we're doing 2 wraps instead of 1 to give it a bit more strength. And then 2 wraps around the bottom wire, and we're not going to do the wraps around the single wire. We're just going to go straight back up between those bottom 2 and do 2 wraps around the middle wire. So that's our repeat. So the whole thing is 2 wraps around the bottom wire, then the middle 2, then the top 2, then the middle 2, and then you repeat that. 2 wraps around the bottom wire, the middle 2, the top 2, the middle 2, and the bottom 2. We just keep repeating that for the length of our bail. I'm going to just take this opportunity to say please mention me when sharing your work made from my tutorials, and thank you to everybody who already has and already does. It's a Kelly Jones design. Thank you everybody. So I've done about 3 centimetres of that weave. And I'll finish with 3 wraps around the bottom wire just to hold that in place there. So make sure you keep pushing your weave together as you're working. Keep it all compressed together. I like to flatten the weaves just because I think they look pretty when they're flattened. If you don't have any pliers, don't worry about that. So we're going to bend this now. This weave is going to be our bail. And I'm going to bend it back at the base to start with. And I'm going to gently bend it forwards. The weaving wire is getting in the way. I'm going to cut that. And I'm going to bend these wires as well to go through the middle. So as I'm shaping the bail, the wires have gone through that middle section. So we want like a loop with our bail weave that goes through the middle part. I've got to try not to bend it off central. And then as the wires go through to the back, we need 2 to go one way and 2 to go the other. So I'm doing it all very gradually in small movements so that if I do go wrong, I'm not making a big mistake. So that's where your chain or your cord's going to go through. When you're happy with the size of that weave, you can then pull these wires straight up and flatten that bail a bit at the bottom, just squeezing it together. And like I say, if you're using copper, it'll be a lot easier to do, and this silver's very springy. So we're going to secure the bail by sending these wires around that top part again. So you've got to pull them nice and secure around there. It'll be a bit easier to do them one at a time, I think. And do the same for the other side. Because my wires are so springy, I think I'm going to squeeze them around with pliers. So I've squeezed these wires into place with my pliers to get them all nice and tight and secure around that top part. And where they come out the back there, I'm going to cut them so they finish behind that weave there. I've just noticed you can really hear my squeaky chair. I hope you can hear my voice over my chair. I'm going to have to cut a bit more off those. It is squeaky. I should have to get a bit of oil on it. Sorry. So there we go. I've cut them a little bit more just so they finish behind, and I've squeezed them in place with pliers. So that's what we've got so far. So looking at these side wires, we've naturally got two that sit higher and two that sit lower. So we're going to take the ones that are higher, which are these two, and we're going to twist them. Now I've seen people using drills and all sorts of fancy gadgets, but I just grab it with my pliers and then twist the actual pendant around and around. And I do it nice and slowly, and I can see the twist starting to form, and you can see when you've got the amount that you want. I'm nearly done. So I've twisted that wire, and I'm going to do the same to this other top wire as well. So I want to point out that my stone is still moving around in there. That's fine because we're going to secure that at the top in the next part. I just looked at it and the top's risen on the one side, but it's fine. As long as it's straight, when we secure the wires to that top part, that'll hold it in place. So now take this bare wire on this side, and we're going to bring it to the front. We're going to bend it over the bail, and we're going to scoop it around to the side. And then the other one needs to come to the front at the same height as that one just did, because you're trying to match them up now. Then you want to bend it over the bail, trying to match the same height as that side, and then you want to bend that one over the other way. So I'm crossing them over to start with, and then I shall pull it over to the right side. So when I say bare wires, I mean bare as in unwoven, as in this case I mean like untwisted. So these are our just shiny wires, just coming straight down, and I've lifted that one side up a little bit because it looked a bit lower. So now going on to the twisted wires, you want to bring that forward, and you want it to come over a bit higher than the bottom one. Not too much higher, but a bit higher, and then we're going to bend it over as we did for the bottom one and curve it around, and then slowly we're going to pull it into place between those two wires. And now we've got to do with this one. Now you need to be careful and try and get it at the right height, because when they're twisted and when they're square, it's hard to adjust them afterwards. So it's best to try and get it right the first time if you can. So we're going to come over, and we're going to go around the other way. I'll do it on top of the wires to start with, so I can get the curve. And then I'll put it between those two bare wires. So we've got that shape going around the front there. So the way these wires come over here are the same as the Camilla video that I did the other week. I did a pendant and some earrings to match, and they all had this lovely scoop of the wires coming over the front. On that design I put a little bead in the middle. On this one I'm going to add a little string of beads between the two. So now as your wires go to the side, you want to bend them because they're going to go around to the back. We want a nice little loop there. And then the wire needs to go around to the back, just a tiny bit above the stone, so the wires are going to come around and back through the front there. So here's where you need to make sure that your stone is how you want it to be. It's still got a lot of movement in it. So I'm going to go like that. And I'm going to take the wires, holding the front really firmly in place there. I'm going to take these wires around through the back. You've really got to hold on tight to the front there so you don't pull the wires out of shape. Felt them go a little bit then. And then you've got to pull them through. And again, because I'm working with springy wires, I'm going to have to use my pliers. And on the other side, you want that nice loop there. I'm talking about this shape here when I'm saying loop. I'm talking about the curve on those wires there. Right, I have wrestled with that until I'm happy with those wire shapes there coming over the top. And I'll squeeze them around the sides with pliers again because my wire's so springy. So they're tight around the sides. I've made sure they haven't crossed over. So I've got the bare wire above and the twisted wire below on both sides. So now you need just a little bit of weaving wire. And we're going to attach to the top bare wire, the one that isn't twisted. We're going to go 3 times around that wire. And what my plan is, so this is going to sit in the middle there. Then we thread our beads on. So push that around and wriggle your weaving wire to that middle position. I'm going to put the tail end at the back for now, just so I can hold it in place. So that's on that bare wire there. And then I'm going to put my beads on this wire. And I'm going to go 2, 3, 4, 3, 2 onto the wire. So I've actually had to add a few beads. When I originally made one of these with a moon, it was only a little teeny tiny stone. It was this little teeny tiny stone, and just a few beads was plenty for that. So if you're using a bigger moon like me, with this one you're going to have to add a few more beads. So I've added an even smaller bead at the ends, and we don't need large bead holes because we're just using weaving wire for this. I get the larger hole sizes for the base wires, and with my hole size being 1mm, I am totally confused to what size that little bead is because I thought that was a 1mm bead. But there you go. So we're going to attach this wire to the bare wire, which is at the top, but we need it to sit. You need to wrap it around and then push it to a central position. I haven't really got much room to play with, so I'm going to fiddle with that, but you get the idea. We're going to attach it to this wire and then just slide it through to a middle position. So when you've slid it round in place and it is fiddly, we just need to cut that weaving wire at both ends. If you've got slightly thicker weaving wire, you could use it for those beads, because then they obviously be a bit more secure. So we just need to finish off these wires now. So pull them around together to the back, and you've got to hold the front in place as you bend them over the back, so you're not misshaping those wires. Check the shaping again on the front. So to finish off these wires, the twisted one I'm going to wrap around this back wire. So you need to get your pliers in there and give it a little twist, but you don't want to chip or break that little end off your moon. So be gentle. Just pull the wire so you've got a gap between the wire, so you can get your wire around that back wire. And I'm going to cut it, and I'm going to try and find them around those pliers, and I'm going to curl that wire around, and I'm holding the side firmly in place so that I'm not misshaping the front there. I'm going to take that wire, and I know I keep saying it, but this is so much easier if you're making out of copper. And I'm going to go around that back wire there that I've pushed back down. So I've got another fiddly bit for you. I'm going to go around that wire, as I keep saying. And I won't pull it tight just yet because I've got to keep checking on the shaping at the front. But we'll do the same with the other side. So it went through so much easier on this side. I don't know what I was doing wrong with the other side. So I've put them through loosely, just so I can keep an eye on the shaping on the front. And when you know it's how you want it to be, then you can tighten them up a bit. Still holding the front in place. I'm just going to squeeze that around that back wire. Cut off the extra. And then just squeeze that into place. So that's those two wires done. I've just got this one final wire left, and I have pushed this wire back against the stone. It's the last wire. I want to finish it off quite short because my stone is so see-through that you'll see the wires from the other side. So I'm just going to curl it around like that. Now you can either just wrap around this outer wire like we just did, or you can add curls and do nice little curls and attach this wire to this one with weaving wire. If I do that, you're going to see it from the other side because my stone's so see-through. So I'm just going to then cut this wire off and attach it to that back wire as I did for this one. So I just wrapped that around, looped it around, and then reattached it as I did with the other ones. So there we have it. My nails have really taken a battering with this wire today. I've had to file them just so you can't see how bad they are. So there we have it, finished. It's like a moon version of the Camilla one I did the other week. I'll probably call it that. People have been asking me how you wrap these little moons, and I thought, if you do this kind of wrap to hold it, you can then do whatever you like with the wires as soon as they're coming out the top there. So we've re-wrapped it very similar to that Camilla one that we did the other day. I thought that would look quite nice with the addition of the extra beads. And even though I've only used the one little weaving wire, the beads don't get touched from the front or the back, so it should be fine. So I hope you found this tutorial helpful, useful. I hope you managed to follow it okay and it wasn't too fiddly or too much messing about for you. Please follow me for more free tutorials, subscribe with the button below, as they say, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.